You weren't tempted last week when we talked about the possibility of you starting a whole new life in Cambodia? Did that? No?
Not really. But...
It's a tremendous sacrifice. And when I say that these things change who you are, it's not entirely for the better. You're closing a whole lot of doors to open that one door.
I'm more curious, this is something I've been wanting to just kind of move into a different topic, segueing, if you will. I'm curious to know, okay, so I only speak English. I don't even speak high school level French. It's terrible.
Yeah.
You speak multiple languages, or you've at least learned languages. Sounds like some of them you haven't kept up with, whatever. I'm curious, as somebody who is clearly prioritizes learning languages. I don't know a lot about that from personal experience. Like, I'm not driven. I don't want to. Like, I feel like it's like learning math for me. I just don't want to look at it, another language. And I think for somebody who doesn't really look at languages too much or hasn't learned multiple languages, the assumption is kind of like that the main reason to learn a language is simply so that you can communicate to people who speak that language. But my vague understanding is that beyond just being able to translate words from English to whatever you're learning, that you actually can pick up stuff from learning another language. Like, it's not just this word means this. There's actual, like, interesting things you can learn about a culture or just about psychology or whatever from hearing or understanding how another language works. Is that accurate? And if so, like, can you tell me about that a bit? Like, is there lessons you get from languages that you kind of can't get anywhere else that aren't just sort of, this word means this?
The short answer is yes, but the long answer is I'm very, very careful not to romanticize this aspect of language learning. And there were a lot of people on the internet, a lot of people publishing books, and a lot of people working in universities who really do try to romanticize language learning. So I have at least one YouTube video where the title is, this is from memory, like, learn as few languages as possible. Like, that's either the title or the subtitle, where I warn people, like, don't think you can learn like 8 languages without really fucking up your life and kind of damaging your psychology. It's a big deal. It screws you up. Frankly, it feels like brain damage. And I have a lot of regrets about language learning, and I'm very honest about that because I don't want other people to make those mistakes. And I really caution people against overly ambitious or overly adventurous approaches to learning a language. There is no shortcut when it comes to learning languages. None. And you know what else? It's not rewarding in the way that people think it is or the way that people say it is. I don't read as much as I used to because I'm busy learning languages. Sorry, I got books here. I don't know when I'm going to find time to read this book. I'd love to do a book review on this channel. But if I'm, okay, so these are both related to China. So I can't read this book about politics and history of China because I'm going to be busy memorizing incredibly simple sentences out of this book, doing language learning, language rote memorization, language practice, so on and so forth. So there's a really simple, direct sense in which language learning makes your life worse, makes your life less meaningful, makes your life less rewarding. And you know, I mean, on the other hand, I'm spoiled. I've studied so many languages for so many years. I am accustomed to getting off an airplane and being able to speak enough French. We get off the airplane in Germany. This even happened. We switched planes in Germany. And speak enough German. And within Asia, speaking Chinese, speaking Thai. Probably if I had to, I could go back to speaking enough Japanese. Not easily. You know, the places I've been flying in and out of, I am really accustomed to saying, pardon me, thank you, how much does this cost? Knowing the numbers, even if it's just that level of interaction when buying groceries, being able to do it. And here I am now in Athens, Greece. And you know, I feel ashamed. I feel ashamed that I don't speak enough of this language already, instantly, to be able to ask people, how much does this cost? Pardon me, sorry, excuse me, whatever. Those kinds of interactions from the day I got off the plane. And you know what? I own the books. So I have the temptation to think over now, how much time do I want to put into reading these books? But again, language study, it competes with studying the philosophy, the history, the politics, things that are really more meaningful and more rewarding. If I spend the time doing rote memorization on Greek vocabulary, Greek sentence structure, Greek grammar, that's time when I'm not even reading the Greek newspaper, let alone the philosophy of Aristotle or, whatever. So You asked about the positive side, and I'm only talking about the negative side so far. I'm happy to talk about both. In terms of the positive side, let me say this. There is absolutely no way you can pick up a political pamphlet published in communist China and appreciate what it means in English translation. All right? Just very simple example. And by the same token, like today, if you picked up one of the pamphlets for Donald Trump and translated it into Chinese, like did Google Translate Chinese, hand it to a Chinese person, there would be so much there they're not getting and not understanding. When you're talking about the politics of Cambodia, the politics of Laos, some of what's going on politically comes from a Marxist and communist heritage. Some of it comes from an ancient Buddhist heritage. Some of it comes from a French Empire, European colonialist heritage. There's a lot there, right? There's a lot to appreciate. Now, for someone like me, that may powerfully motivate you to wake up in the morning and study an obscure language like Laotian, along with the potential to really make a positive difference in the world. In brief, through humanitarian work, through research, I had different reasons to do this. With that having been said, very often the price is too high to pay. I'm left with a lot of regrets in my life. And I really do feel like it's brain damage. I've lost a lot of my intellectual potential and a lot of things I could have done with my life. Learning Laotian, learning Cambodian. I learned much less Cambodian than Laotian, incidentally, but it was very hard work. Very, very tough language to work on. What I learned of Cambodian came at a very high price. And, I have to say also, when I slip into speaking Laotian, which I still can do, it doesn't feel good. I mean, it's really like PTSD. It's really awful. And I don't think on a biological level that it is natural, normal, or good to be multilingual or massively multilingual, to have many languages acquired this way. So just to very briefly contrast, something positive. When I was in Laos, I didn't just study Laotian. I studied the ancient language, Pali. And I remember riding up on my bicycle to a hospital. And the hospital had a long, pretentious name. They like to do that in Laotian. So Lao, it's a monosyllabic language. It's like many words are just one syllable long. But then they have these long words that come from Buddhist philosophy that are polysyllabic and very, very long. And, I actually found an error in the spelling of the hospital's name. And I was able to speak Laotian enough to go up and explain to them, hey, I'm a scholar of Buddhist philosophy. And, actually you have the wrong consonant in the middle of this long word. And, now today I completely forget what was the name of the hospital. It was probably like, the hospital of the sun shining down radiant kindness in order to help the injured or something, pretentious, needlessly abstruse name for a hospital, whatever the hell it was called, I forget, but it was a long word like this, okay, if you study languages like Cree and Ojibwe, you get to look at a map and understand why some of the places still name what they're named. You get to read the legends and understand the culture, and there are different things you can learn. There are ways in which you can benefit, but it's a tremendous sacrifice. And when I say that these things change who you are, it's not entirely for the better. In some ways, studying languages changes you for the worse. And each new language you take on, it's a big decision with major ramifications and consequences. So people write to me asking for advice about learning particular languages, and I often am cautioning them, look, like let's say it's Laotian. Okay, go there for 2 weeks first. Think about this. Really make sure you want to take this step, because there's also the opportunity cost. Oh, okay, so you've decided to learn Laotian. So you're never going to learn Mongolian. You're never going to learn a Central Turkic language, such as what's spoken in Uzbekistan. You're never going to go to Egypt and be able to communicate with people in Egyptian Arabic. Like, you may not think you're closing the door on a lot of things, like you are. You're closing a whole lot of doors to open that one door. So are you sure you want to learn Laotian? Are you sure you want to learn Cambodian, Chinese, Japanese, whatever it is, and to really take that seriously? And when I say it changes who you are, keep in mind, some of that stuff you can't anticipate. You can't know how that's going to change you. And What I've just said right now, you can watch 100 different YouTube channels from so-called polyglots and language coaches and people who say, pay me to talk to me on Skype. Like, there are a lot of people making money out of making language education seem fabulous and entertaining on the internet. And I think none of them will be as honest as I've just been and saying, look, there's a dark side to this language learning game. You got to think about the costs. You weren't tempted last week when we talked about the possibility of you starting a whole new life in Cambodia? Did that? No?
Not really. That's interesting. That wasn't the answer I was expecting, but that's interesting.